welcome you all back to Legacy of Purpose. Today we have a very special guest, Noor Sweid. And I want to say special not because of your very long list of titles and achievements, but because of the person that you are and what you're trying to achieve. But I think everybody should know. Noor Sweid is the founder and managing partner of Global Ventures, which is a UAE-based international venture capital firm with presence in Cairo, Jeddah, Riyadh, Tunis, and Lagos. I hadn't realized the Lagos piece, but I love it. And previously, Noor was the chief investment officer at the Dubai Future Foundation. Didn't know that either. And managing partner at Leap Ventures. She also played a significant role in her family's business, where she scaled the business tenfold, executed 4 cross-border acquisitions, and led the region's first female-led IPO on the London Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq Dubai, achieving over $1 billion US dollar valuation. She also founded Zen Yoga, which is probably one of my favorite things. The first yoga studio in the MENA region, which grew to become the largest wellness chain before successfully, again, exiting to a private equity firm. You're also a founding board member of Endeavor UAE and sit on a long list of boards, including the board of MIT Sloan, where she's also an alum, and we're very proud of that. Lastly, Noor was recognized in Forbes' World's Top 50 Women in Tech, Arabian Business 100 Most Powerful Women list, and she also received the Arab Woman Award for Finance. Noor is also a mom of 3 boys, a daughter, a sibling, and a friend. There has never been a time where I have reached out to you and you haven't really tried your absolute best to either meet our fellows or host an event for our fellows. And we're super excited to welcome you to this podcast, but also to welcome you back to MIT, welcome you to Innovation Headquarters, and welcome you to what will soon be called the Cool Sharper Center for Prosperity and Entrepreneurship.
Well, I am super excited to be here, and thank you for that long list.
I know, I had to do it. It's very rare for me to read a complete bio, but then I felt I had to do it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's really impressive what you've done.
Thank you.
But, we're all products of where we came from. So I want to start a question by taking you back, way far back in your journey. And I want to ask you, from your childhood and your family, what were the experiences that influenced you and shaped you the most and led you to where you are today? From everything that I've read about you, from your new book, from podcasts that you've done, from panels that you've spoken on that I have personally witnessed, you clearly have very solid values that are guiding you, and that doesn't come from nowhere.
No. So I'm the eldest of 4 kids, and we are all very close, both emotionally and as siblings, but also age-wise. So I'm the eldest. My brother is a year and a half younger than me, and then my sisters are twins, and they're a year and 2 months younger than my brother.
So you're like best friends.
So we're like 4 kids in less than 3 years. So anyone who has multiple kids and has 3 kids in 5 years, I'm like, yes, try 4 under 3. So from when I was very young, there was very much a sense of responsibility towards my siblings. So even though I was 3 years old, my brother was 1.5, and we would be together, and I would be semi-responsible, and my sisters were newborns. So my mom would be with them. So there was very much this communal sense of taking care of each other from a very young age. And with that then comes taking care of everyone around you. So I think even as I was raised, it was always these opportunities to give back. So when we go to Syria every summer, there would be a certain place where I would go and I would teach English. I would teach computers back then in the 80s and the 90s, and really give back. And this was just always part of what the family did. Later, when I worked with my father in the family business, we scaled. We went from 1,000 people in 2005 to 9,000 people in 2008. And his biggest thing when the financial crisis happened was, if you lay off people, remember that each job affects 10 people around it.
Right.
Because we have such high unemployment. So it is very much this African expression, if you will, where, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And so from when I was very young, there was a sense of community, of taking care of each other, and being, all one at the same time.
Yeah. It's very much part of our culture, this communal piece.
Yes. I talk about it in the book.
You do?
And how many words we have for family,
You
how
do?
we have 3 words for family, and how it is very much tribal. And I always think it's funny when I travel, and I travel as an Arab, often travels with loads of luggage, and my kids,
Oh my God.
and my mother, and someone else. And so we show up to the airport, and my kids are all like, "This is so
And you have,
embarrassing."
like all these bags and all these things and all these people.
Exactly. And then at the airport in the line, you bump into people and it's very much like, okay.
I know. People here are like always, I live in Boston, but my house is like this open door, and people's like, you always have people with you. You always have people staying with you. Who's staying at your apartment this time? It's just like, it's just a part of how we function.
Exactly. And that's really what drives me I grew up in that family. I grew up in that community, and there has always been a sense of you take care of yourself and others.
But then there's this driven piece.
Yes.
This like, what can I achieve next? What can I do more? I feel.
So my mother likes to tell the story of a time when I was 2, or even younger. Must have been when I was younger. And I was going somewhere, and there was a step that I had to cross, and it was almost camouflaged with the floor. And I was walking, and I tripped. Must have been younger, call it 1. And I tripped, and I fell, and I got up. And she always says, it's not that you cried. It's not that you carried on. It's that you went back.
And did it all over.
And did it all over again to make sure that you got it right. So she's like, and at that point in time, I knew you would be fine. I'm like, really?
You're just going to keep at it. Nothing is going to stop you.
So it's not even that you just move on. It's let me make sure that I figured that out. So she loves to tell the story as, yes, since she was 1, she was like this. But I think also that watching and observing people around me. So my father works very hard. Now he's retired, but was also very driven to succeed and also an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And always thinking through, what can I create? What can I build? How do I do that? And just, there will always be people in life that tell you that's not possible. And I always say, it's, just because it hasn't been done yet,
doesn't
mean
it's not possible.
Right?
But let me show you. I will show you.
So that's really I absorbed that from the family.
Yeah, I love it. And, I want to ask you, because I think looking on the outside, it looks like you're this very driven, very focused person. But life is never that simple. So were there any moments of doubt or like points in your life that you felt changed your trajectory in a way that you hadn't necessarily anticipated or wanted?
I think that moments of doubt exist every day, multiple times a day, right? And I think that they're a great sense check to make sure that you're pushing yourself. Because if you have no moments of doubt, then you're only doing things that you're comfortable with,
right?
Which means you're not growing, right? And if you're not growing, then really, what's the point? So I think moments of doubt are uncomfortable, but in a good way, because it means that you are on a path to growth. I think in my journey, I left Dubai when I was 17, went to college, and in the late 90s, Dubai was not as cool as it is today. So
it really wasn't.
There was nothing there. So left never to return, right? And I had moved to Dubai when I was 15, so it wasn't even like I was attached to it. So I was like leaving, I'm done, I'm going to the US, I'm going to go study. And then I was studying, I wanted to do law as post-grad. I hated my pre-law classes in my undergrad. So immediately when I was a senior in college, I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that.
That's not me.
That's not me. So that was the first kind of, okay, then what? And I wanted to learn everything about biopharma, but I was a finance economics undergrad. So I ended up in a consulting firm.
Yep.
And that was like the first, like, okay, this is, not the plan, but let's go. Went to business school. After business school, was hired by a consulting firm, by Booz. And they were supposed to send me to Miami. They discovered I spoke Arabic.
So they sent you back.
So they sent me back. Again, not the plan. Right? And then between my first and second...
Miami's a nice place,
Miami's
too.
a great place. In the very early days of Booz, I ended up working with my father for a few weeks, which turned to 8 years. Again, not the plan. Started a yoga studio just so I could have somewhere to practice. That grew and became a large chain. Again, not the plan. And then ultimately,
So this yoga studio was really about, I needed a place to do yoga.
this yoga studio was really proud to place it. Yeah, I mean, I'd become a huge yoga fan in Boston for 6 years, and then when I moved back in 2005, couldn't find anywhere to practice, and I felt that affected my health, my mental, all of it. So I started this yoga studio, and there were no teachers, so brought 2 teachers over from the States, and got the yoga teacher training certification so that we can train our own teachers. And I was doing this while working in the family business and scaling that, and leading up to an IPO. And these little yoga studios grew, and within 4 years, we had 5 locations, 72 teachers, 6,000 students a month. And every time I walk in there, my stress level goes up because I'm solving all these business problems, and I can't really practice yoga there anymore.
So you said, let me sell it.
So it defeats the purpose. I just want to come here and practice yoga. And so that was the yoga. It was really a matter of if I need it this much, the market must need it too.
Yeah.
I can't be the only person that wants a yoga studio. So I think that market creation and kind of like that blue ocean strategy, is you identify a market need, you create the market, and then you participate in it as it grows. And since you're the one creating the market and shaping the market, your participation can lead to great outcomes.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to ask you, you're balancing so many things, and I'm always in awe. I'm not a mother, but I'm always in awe of women who are balancing being an investor, sitting on boards, mentoring entrepreneurs, probably continuing to give advice to, your father, but also being a mother of 3. It's a lot. And I know that mothers have special superpowers. I do know this. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. But I want to ask you, what are some of the practices that keep you grounded? But also, we ask this to a lot of people. How do you prioritize the gazillion demands that you have in your 24 hours a day?
So first, to clarify, I no longer sit on boards.
Oh, you dropped
I don't.
all of them.
All of them.
So did I, except for 2.
There's one I'm still trying to drop. I think I need another 9 months, but then I'll be on zero.
I know. I feel you.
So I just joined the board of the GPCA, the Global Private Capital Association, because it's important to have regional representation.
Right.
But otherwise, 0 boards. Even our portfolio, the other partners sit on boards. It's a great opportunity for them, their exposure, their learning, for the companies. And now we have some of our investors taking those board roles because they have industry expertise. So having sat on enough boards, I take that learning of what's important in a board, what's important in a board member, and how can I find someone better than me
And put them
to
on
and
the board.
put them on the board. So I sit on 0 boards. That I got a lot of time back that way. That was the first hack. But
Hence writing a book.
yeah, now I had time to write the book. So I don't, I think time management is one of these things where I have, as you mentioned, 3 boys, and one of them is very similar to me. I don't think
oldest?
It's the middle child.
The middle child.
In certain ways. Each one's similar in different ways. The middle child has my aptitude for time management. And so I remember when I was a child, when I was 9, 10, 12, and we would spend summers in Syria, in Damascus. And I'd get very bored because time slows down there. It's magical how really time just stops. And I would ultimately, my mother would say, if you do these extra maths sheets, these extra English, like trying to incentivize us to work, then we'll give you 5 lira, 10 lira, enough to buy candy at the corner store. And I would create these schedules so that the day before I went to bed, I would sit and I would create the next day from 7 a.m. to 7 in half-hour increments.
In these,
and what I was going to do
as a 9-year-old.
As a 9-year-old, as a 10-year-old.
We have somebody at our office who functions like that.
Yes. I have one of my children that functions like that. Now, he doesn't know this story, but he functions that way. He genuinely does. He wants to know. In his head, it works that way. Right? So I think as I grew up, I've just had this association and relationship with time that's a bit different. That even if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't need to look at a clock. I know what time it is. At any point in time, to plus or minus 5 minutes. So time is just something that I've always had this relationship with. I think what's important when I think about prioritization isn't time, it's energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think of time management as the skill set that I need to master or I need to have a good relationship with. I'm very grateful to have that awareness of time, not even management of time. I think that energy management and understanding how can I be present and show up? Which part of me is required in this moment?
Right.
And how can I tune into that energy and that presence? And for a child, that's a very different kind of presence than in the office, right? Where it's a very cognitive presence, and here it's a very emotional presence.
Right.
Right. And so tuning into energy management, because your energy can be drained even if you have plenty of time.
For sure. 100%.
And so the energy management is where I find myself focusing more on how can I find that energy within me to give everything that needs me the right fair share.
In relation to the whatever role you're playing in the moment.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. And how would you define success for Noor today versus how you would define success for Noor just graduating from Sloan with her MBA?
I think when I was younger, and I have my 20-year reunion next month, so that's from my MBA, so 20 years ago.
Great achievement.
When I was younger, 20 years ago.
This is like when 20 years
20
ago.
years ago.
You can't imagine yourself saying these
God,
things.
no,
I know.
not at
I know.
all. When you graduate, you're like 20-year reunion. Whoa, they're old. Now I'm on that side of the reunion.
Not old. We don't say these words.
Okay, well, not old, but wise.
Wise, exactly.
So I think when I was younger, success was defined by achievements.
Yeah.
Right? And it was, here are the goals, here's what I want to achieve, here's what I want to set out to do. I think now when I think about a successful week or a successful month or the next year, it's really about how much of my time have I enjoyed. So it's, you can raise the next fund, you cannot.
So it's more about joy.
It's more about joy. It's more about being present in time and enjoying. And so what's the point of raising the next fund if it's going to be miserable?
Right.
Right? And vice versa, right? So what's the point of doing anything?
Yeah.
So really thinking about what is it then that drives my joy, right? Working with founders, working with a team, spending time with my kids, and even with my kids. I love them tremendously, but I don't enjoy all time with my kids equivalently. I enjoy certain moments, certain amounts of time, and then you hit a saturation point. And identifying that I'd rather spend 3 or 4 hours wonderfully with my children, right? Than hit that saturation point and have a negative memory at the end.
Yeah.
Because the human mind remembers the beginning, the end, and the
100%.
high or low, right?
It's
So
true.
it's like you want to
just
end on a high.
100%.
So understanding for myself that it's really about the quality and the enjoyment rather than the achievement
Right.
that defines success.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can completely relate with that, which ties nicely into my next question. You talk about accountability to 3 things, and you spoke about it on the Mo podcast, and which I loved. But you talk about the importance of being accountable to your wealth, to your health, and to your intellect. And I can relate to all 3. And for me, when the minute I heard you talk about accountability to wealth, it also takes me back maybe a little bit to the roots of how I was raised and some of the more, I would say, principles that are deeply rooted in Islam about what privilege comes with wealth and what you do with it. But I found myself often, lagging behind in all 3. Sometimes I feel, I'm doing really good about being accountable to that part of my life that is that has wealth, or I'm doing really good at taking care of my health, or I'm doing great at keeping myself intellectually stimulated. And sometimes I'm doing great at all 3. However, I'm never consistent. So my question to you is, what is your secret to keeping that accountability consistent for all 3?
I don't think I'm consistent either.
I didn't want to hear that. I was hoping
I
you
don't
were
think
gonna
it's
give me the
important to be
secret.
consistent.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be aware. So I think if you're conscious about it and you're aware of it, and you're aware that if I'm aware that I'm shortchanging this, then I think subconsciously, unconsciously, over a very, near-term time
Yeah.
period, you adjust for that. And by adjusting for that, inadvertently, something else is going to fall. And then you adjust for that. And I don't think of it as a snapshot. It's not a balance sheet. It's more like a cash flow statement. Right? So it's like...
That's a very Noor thing to say.
But it's true.
Tell the audience, why is it more like a cash flow
Because
statement?
it's over a period of time, things go up and down. And ultimately, you need to land net positive so
Yes.
that things carry on.
But it's okay to have the fluctuations.
But it's okay to have the fluctuations. And just because you're fluctuating on one line, you make it up on the other line, and it's all good, right? It's not a balance sheet snapshot in time where this is it, it can't change. And so I think most of life is fluid. And, I think sometimes I'm at fault for thinking, in my human mind, that everything is, snapshotted in time. It's not. And the awareness of I'm falling short here will naturally bring around an adjustment. And if it doesn't, then your awareness elevates that as a priority in your mind,
Right.
and eventually you bring around that adjustment. And you come back to it.
So
Be kind to yourself.
fair, very fair. It's not an easy thing for a woman.
No.
We have this ingrained, conditioned
Inner critic.
Yes.
You're guilty. You're guilty.
Sometimes you're good at killing it. Sometimes it's very alive and kicking.
Always remember to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, 100%. But tell us a little bit more about how you came to these three core things in your journey.
So it's my grandmother. So she, when I was young, would talk to me a lot. And she would often say
Grandmothers are the best.
They're the best.
I know.
So she would often say that these are the three things that God has distributed among people. And they are not distributed equally. And you are accountable to them, and they are responsibilities in as much as they are privileges.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. But it's a framing, and I think it's important.
But it's a very simple yet
Yeah.
profound way to think of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in many ways, it's talking about mind, body, soul.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's talking about your ability. And I think what many of us forget is that health and wellness and the ability to be physically able and do things is not a privilege everybody has.
Yes, I agree.
There are many people that are unable to just, for physical reasons, are not as blessed with strong health.
Yeah, and it's so important, health. I could talk to you about this for a very long time, but I'm gonna move on. But maybe on the side,
We
I'm
can
gonna
have another conversation.
Yes. But I want to shift a little bit to your career. I think, Noor, I've always observed you from afar. I tell you this all the time. I'm, in Arabic you say, rafati rasna, all the time. And as a woman, I have enormous, the utmost respect. My respect is not for what you have achieved. My respect is for how you carry yourself in those achievements, right? And you've broken a lot of barriers as one of the first women to do a number of things in spaces that have been deeply male dominant. Leading an IPO, starting a venture capital fund at a time where there were no female fund managers. But, specifically with the family business, deciding to take it an IPO of family business in our region, that's a big deal, In our part of the world, family business, we like to say family business is private. Keep it private, keep it within the family, go from one generation to the next. You IPO'd it. What was behind that, and how did you get your family behind it? And what was the thinking that was going through your mind?
So I had been working with my father for 3 years. My brother had worked with him before I joined the business. And they had different ways of doing things.
I can imagine.
So I came into the business to help with a restructure, and then did a private placement, and then institutionalized, and then we were scaling. And my sisters, who are 3 years younger than me almost, one was studying psychology in California. The other was working in social practice in Australia, in opposite 14 hours in opposite directions from Dubai. It didn't look like anyone was coming home. So I think, so one day in mid 2007, my father and I have been working together for a while, and I had made it very clear, I believe, because I communicated it, but I don't know if people heard it, from when I first joined the business, that I would never be CEO.
Right.
Because I fundamentally believe until today that a good CEO of any business needs to know how the money is made.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the interior contracting business. So the money gets made at 2 points. One is when you tender a bid. So you're putting, I'm going to tender and procure and whatnot. I could never look at that sheet and tell you if something was on or off.
I know. I've heard you say this before.
And I could never walk into a project site and tell you what's going wrong. So since it was clear that I would never be CEO because I didn't have the core skill set to know how to make money in this business, my brother was off doing his own thing. My sisters were off doing their own thing.
In opposite sides of the
universe.
universe.
Literally 14 hours opposite directions from Dubai. The question then just landed. I'm like, okay, well, then what? And at this point, we had raised private capital. There were investors. There were stakeholders. At that point, we had been diluted to a minority. So I said, why not IPO? And there was some excitement in 2007. It was pre-financial crisis. And everybody encouraged us to wait because 2007 would be the best year. So why don't you wait one more year?
But Noor.
I think I took, so I was very firm.
But not Noor.
And so I told my father, I said, it's one thing to wait. It's another to wait that it may never happen. Right? And that was the conversation. And I think the conversation, he said, what do you guys want? And my perspective, and I'm very lucky that he's such a great listener.
Yeah.
And such a fair person, because I think the discussion that revolved around that lunch table was that he had the freedom in life to pursue and build the business he wanted to build that spoke to his authenticity. And that my brother had been clear that he was going to do that. And my sisters had been clear that they were going to do that. And so in the spirit of you've had that freedom, and do you not desire for your children to have that freedom too? Mm-hmm. And if that is what you desire, then ultimately an exit or an IPO enables everyone to just do what they want to do,
right?
Rather than feel beholden to a business that was somebody else's vision and aligned with somebody else's authenticity. So I think that was really the conversation. And for him, he was like, "That makes sense." I think it was hard, but I also think. And I always tell people that, for me, and learning from my dad, but I've always looked at companies that outlive their founders as the ones that are legacy. Building something that continues to need you is not success.
No.
Building something that no longer needs you
is success.
And DEPA stayed public for 10 years after we left as a family and was taken private a year and a half ago and is still a going concern as a private company. So, thinking through that and building something that doesn't need you as your legacy is very inspiring.
Yeah. I love that. But it also speaks to what I think is this theme that I see throughout your life, which is this, and maybe comfort is not the right word, but I think it is comfort, this comfort with reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
And also reinventing yourself with a purpose behind it. I don't feel like you're, randomly reinventing yourself, even if you, want to be casual about some of the transitions in your life. But I feel like, you led this IPO, you exited this incredible yoga business, and this was like a great business in the health and wellness space. And there was purpose behind that, purpose behind the IPO, and a purpose behind starting Global Ventures. Mm-hmm. And, I guess the question I have is, how do your values shape kind of your transitions from one thing to another? Like, what is that guiding purpose? if we want to call it that, or the one guiding value. That's kind of
So I think in life for me, it's always more important to give than to receive. And you can give with your time, you can give with your money, you can give with your intellect, you can give with whatever it is. And right now with Global Ventures, it was this opportunity where I said, I really believe that private capital, whether it was DEPA, whether it was Zen Yoga, really enabled the companies to grow. And in that growth, you created jobs, you created opportunity. And when I would look around 7 years ago, the MENA region had $400 million of funding, all year, all deals. I mean, last year we had 2.4 billion.
We've come
last year we had
a long way.
2.4 billion, which is wonderful. We've come a long way. Last year the world was at 290 billion.
I understand.
So in that context, 7 years ago, I had been investing for a while in different founders. They had been scaling. I would introduce them to my VC friends abroad so that they could raise money. And I'm like, this just makes no sense. And I was serving at the Dubai Future Foundation. I was a CIO there. And seeing how governments were moving full speed ahead in building these innovation ecosystems. And private sector was still lagging. And founders were unfunded. So it became this, wait, if I can create something to solve the problem of access to capital for founders, even if I just create a small dent in this massive problem, that's worthwhile. Right. And it was this desire to create something that's helpful to others because I had lived the problem.
Yeah.
And I had overcome the problem. And so I knew what that looked like. In building the firm, I then realized that my purpose was to be this, translator. The region's incredible stories and incredible founders. And a lot of our capital comes from international investors. And then being able to see the region in a different light. And I'm able to convey those stories. And I'm privileged to have a great network. And so being able to leverage the network of amazing investors and the network of incredible founders and just putting them together to enable that growth so that our founders at Global Ventures combined have created 16,000 jobs in the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Right? When you think about the financial inclusion metrics, over 60 million people financially included. So on top of we've had 6 exits and returned most of Fund 1 and it's a top decile performer globally, yes, the financials are there. And so are those measurements that matter to me in the context of you're using capital wisely and well to create change and provide opportunity. So where that comes from is I always think there's always opportunities in life. And there's always messages that are around us that you can tune into and be like, hey, what's the universe trying to tell me? What's God trying to say? What's happening? What was the purpose behind meeting this person? I think that those always exist. Sometimes we forget to listen. And in tuning in and saying, and pondering, hey, that person said something that struck a chord with me. Why did that strike a chord? What does this mean to me? My conclusion became, I need to play this role of this is my purpose right now. And you alluded to the different phases. I think purposes change.
Oh, I believe it. I want people to hear it. I believe it for sure. And as we evolve, different things matter.
Yep. And your values maybe evolve if they didn't.
Sometimes one value takes the higher priority than another. No, we are very evolutionary, and you are definitely testament to that. And, I think also Global Ventures, I don't know, Noor, I think the reason why your story of starting Global Ventures resonates with me is that people always ask me why I decided to come and be executive director of this center and leave my country. And everybody knows how much I love my region, love Egypt. And, I always say, because I was tired of how countries like mine are being portrayed in the world. And if I could play a role in shifting the narrative of emerging markets or what people call the global south, what we here at the center call global growth markets, by even like a margin, then I'm going to do that because we are more than what the media often portrays us as. And what I would say what Global Ventures has done is that it has really shifted the narrative around the ability for people to invest their money in founders from our part of the world and get that money back.
Yes.
Right?
This is like an investment that makes
Because
money.
you sometimes go to people and they'll be like, I'm not going to invest in the Middle East. I'm not going to get my money back. Or I'm not going to invest in Africa. I won't get my money back. And it's a fallacy and not true. And I think that's why I love the story of Global Ventures. But I know that, building and growing your firm probably hasn't been, peachy and
Of course not.
Easy peasy.
That would be
and-
boring.
Yeah, there are always challenges in building something like this and anywhere in the world, especially when you're leading it as a woman in a space that very few female fund managers, exist. But what lessons did you learn along the way that I would say if there are listeners on this podcast who have an interest in starting their own fund, what would be the kind of 3 core lessons you would share?
So when people tell you it only gets easier or fund 2 is easier than fund 1 and fund
It's a
3,
lie.
it's a lie.
That's kind of like when people say 40 is the new 30 and you're like, huh? No, it's not.
Exactly. No, but thanks for trying. So I think those are great words of encouragement, and they are just that, words of encouragement. I think each fund is different to raise. There's definitely no easier, right? And most fund managers never make it past fund 3.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We just finished fund 3. So hopefully we'll be able to raise fund 4 in a couple of years. But I think understanding what your value add is probably the most important thing. So anyone who's out to raise a fund, build a firm, like, why? Right? And if your why isn't so strong, and your why is driven from your value add, right? So your why needs to be really strong. You cannot just be building another fund in another city, one more with a slight twist. That might work for marketing, but it's going to be very, very tough in terms of sourcing the right deals, keeping it going, creating the returns. Like, what is your unique value add? So, I've never thought of myself as an investor. And even running a venture capital firm, I'm an investor 10, 15% of my time. I'm an entrepreneur, business builder, story sharer, 85% of the time.
Right.
And, sourcing deals, marketing for deals, sourcing opportunities to exit these deals, building relationships. That's the job.
Right.
If you enjoy investing, it's very different to managing a fund and portfolio construction, which is very different to building a firm. So being honest with yourself about which of these you enjoy the most will help you go the journey of why am I doing this?
It's really not easy.
No.
Raising money is not easy.
No, and raising money for a blind pool for a fund is like telling me, trust me. Okay, well, there's 100 other people that are saying, trust me. So why is it you that's different?
And, I'm always here at Sloan now, and a couple of years ago, we hosted a closed, I would say, roundtable for female MBA students.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because, it was revealing in the sense that a lot of the women said, we want to enter this venture capital space, but there's no space for us. So why bother? What would you have to say to women who are thinking about this idea of either building a fund or potentially joining a fund? And what would be the first step they should take? And what should they ignore from the noise?
It's 2 very different questions.
Yeah.
I think if you're joining a fund and you're joining the investment team, then ask yourself, what makes me the best investor? And go be that. If you're building a firm, then you have to be very conscious that you'll be investing the first few deals, but the rest of the time, you're not going to be an investor. Right? There's a very big difference between being an investor, being a fund manager, and being a firm builder. Like, very different jobs. And if you're building a firm, you need to know how to be all 3. So you start as a great investor, then you have to figure out how to be a great fund manager, and all of your LPs are watching you to make sure you know how to do that before they give you a second fund, which enables you to then build your firm. Right? So that's a very different journey. That's an entrepreneurial journey. And being an investor is your key core essence that you just have to be really, really good at in order to elevate to the others. So I think that that's the advice to people looking to enter the industry. If you want to be an investor, be an investor. If you want to build a firm, build a firm. In both cases, there's very little space, period.
For anybody.
For anybody. It's a very small industry. It's a very small percentage of assets allocated. 2% of venture dollars are managed by females. There's really no room. And so go be a great investor, do a few SPVs, structure that together, pull together a fund, build your own. Great. Your value add is you have a different perspective in a certain market and so on. But before you do all that, the advice I give is go build a company. Because if you really want to build a firm,
you better know how to
build a company.
Yep.
And this is probably one of the more complex companies to build, is the firm. And so go operate, go run a P&L, go work with another entrepreneur, have that operating experience. So at Global Ventures, all the partners have operating expertise, right? So that we can work with founders. Otherwise, the founders will sit across from me and be like, I mean, great, you wrote me a check, but what do you really know about running a P&L or running payroll or the problems
Which
I'm
I'm
having?
not sure people say a lot.
No.
You know, because we do have quite a few fund managers out there who have never
Who've never operated a company. And they might be great investors, right? So they're great at picking the right investments, at picking trends. But the advice I give people is go operate. And then come to the table, and then you have a different perspective on investing. Not all investors agree with me. Not all VCs agree with me. I think the VCs that have operated companies before agree with me. Those that don't. So it's it's natural selection on which side of the table you fall on. But I think that that's probably the advice I would give. And as for the noise, my mother used to always say, where there's a will, there's a way. That was like one of the mantras I was raised with. And so I was raised ignoring noise. And I feel so blessed
to be able to do that.
I'm affected by it, but you can choose to ignore it or choose to let it affect you. So although I'm affected by it, I learn how to shake it off and carry on. And I would advise that there's a very big difference between ignoring noise and ignoring advice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Noise is noise. Noise is everyone who tells you can't do it. Advice is people who say, if you choose to do it, here are the things I would look out for.
And you listen to that.
And you need to listen to advice.
Yeah. I think that is a blessing that you had that as your mantra. And, I feel like, Navina Tahri was here, Navina Tahri was here at MIT for the Africa Innovate conference. And she said something, and I kind of looked at her and paused. She said, Dina, women are expected to fail. It's the expectation, but we prove them wrong. And you have to learn how to not let noisy criticism impact you. And, I think maybe we have developed that ability, but not a lot of people have. For those who weren't blessed to grow up with that kind of mantra, what would be your one piece of advice?
Grow thick skin.
Grow thick skin. I think I probably would have said the exact same thing. Just the way to go. There's no other way about it.
I mean, you got to decide. Either you want it or you don't.
Yeah.
If you want it, go get it. If you don't,
and if you want to go get it and develop the thick skin, it's just, there is no other way. So I'm going to ask you a question that I think, probably many people want to know your answer, including me, which is, how is it that you identify the founders and the ideas that truly align with your vision and your fund's vision of long-term value? There must be some kind of formula that you've created.
Sure, let me write it for you.
You're an MIT alum. There's always a formula.
I think that there's a lot of great founders out there. And ideas are a dime a dozen. And in our industry and in our business, it's execution that counts. Mm-hmm. So backing and investing in founders that align with what we're trying to achieve in terms of industries, how we identify industries as our research. So we're very deep in research. We publish it on our
So
website.
you guys really are.
We do a lot of research. So once we're excited about an industry, we still look at everything else and we'll deploy into everything else. But we kind of know that if we find a founder in this industry and we like the founder because they're direct, they seem to be honest, they have the right backgrounds, and they have some demonstration of high execution,
Right.
then our capital just enables them to do them. Rather than an industry that we're on the fence on, right? Or a founder who, we've invested in several founders that we're like, well, we like the founder, but, maybe they were rude to the receptionist, right? But that tells you a lot about the person.
It really does. It
right?
does. 100%.
And we've made those investments before, and it's come back and been challenging for us. So I think ultimately it's, do we like the founder? Do we love the industry and the market? And is there demonstrated capability to execute? And then we get behind them. And within Global Ventures, we have a 7-layer framework that's value creation, where we get involved and we support on everything. And we can scale with that because it is very frameworkized. So that's kind of how we think about it and how we do it. I will say that one of the hardest things about venture, and one of the things that I always ask the team to shield from, is the FOMO. So the noise. So whenever
it's a damn noise, man.
Yeah,
I tell
get
you,
rid of the
it's
noise.
like get rid of the noise.
So opportunities will come and it's like, yeah, but you need to understand, like, this firm's looking at it and they got a term sheet from that.
I just got to do it. We're going to miss out. We're going to miss out.
So my rule is, don't tell me. I actually don't want to know
Yeah.
what the competition, because it clouds my judgment. Like, I want to look at the founder, the company, the market, the ability to execute. That's where the decision gets based, not who else is throwing money at this deal, because I don't know what their thinking process is. So it's really hard to shield yourself from the noise in small industries, but it's really important.
But you've also said that you've challenged this idea that venture capital should be competitive at all.
No, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's ahla wa sahla. Whoever wants to come into
You're
the deal,
like,
great.
it's all about collaboration.
It is all about collaboration, which is why, like, don't give me the FOMO. That's not gonna help anyone. If I like it and someone else likes it of their own accord, great, we do it together.
We do it together.
But I don't like it because someone else likes it.
Yeah, I love it. I want to ask you one last question about venture capital, and then I want to move on to this amazing book that you published. I here at the center, I would say since I started, we've had a huge focus on the role of capital and the importance of capital allocation, and why it's so important to talk about it. And I would say in the current climate that we're in, we don't need to talk about politics, but the current political climate is a very charged one. And I think some of the decisions that have been made here in the U.S. are definitely going to impact the rest of the world, specifically the MENA region, Africa. But I want to ask you, what role do you think risk capital should be playing in this current time with regards to really building economic sovereignty within emerging markets?
There's a great expression, which is the future belongs to the young.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think the young are not just represented by a demographic population, and our population is incredibly young.
Very young.
But it's also illustrated by the leadership. Right? And I think if you are in a leadership position and you are thinking about your legacy, you are often influenced to behave a certain way. If you're thinking about your accountability,
Then you behave differently.
you behave differently. And so I think that the policies that are made are not made thinking about accountability 10, 20 years from now. Whereas in other parts of the world, I'm in the UAE and Saudi, you have Vision 2030, 2033. They're very clear. And the ministers that are getting involved in those are in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 years from now,
They're still going to be
they're
kind of young.
going to be kind of young. And they're going to be there. And they're going to be held accountable by everyone.
Yeah.
And so I think that those decisions get made with a lot of thoughtfulness as to the general impact to the population. So I think that as the younger populations start to come into their own, and the leadership there takes a very positive attitude towards risk capital, and investing in startups and investing in the ecosystem, we'll start to see more and more flourishing companies. And that's important. And I think that happens regardless of what the rest of the world does. To the extent that some countries go from being low risk to high risk, that only then benefits the countries that were high risk to start with, because then capital might flow in that direction.
You know, a friend of mine always says that risk capital is the very beginning of a founder's journey, but it can also be the very beginning of creating a new industry or shifting an industry in a different direction. And I want to hope that over the next decade, we start seeing a lot more people enter the risk capital space, and more funds in Africa and MENA, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia and South Asia. We want to see more locally born funds. But you know, there is a strong ethos at Global Ventures. There is a strong kind of focus on industry trends. You're very evidence-based. You do a lot of research. What do you want to tell new venture capitalists across emerging markets who are entering this space about that responsibility? Because it is a responsibility, and about that accountability.
So I think that managing other people's money
is the biggest responsibility.
Has a much higher bar than managing your own money.
Yeah.
And often, and not everybody agrees with me. And I think that that's where you end up with questionable actors.
Yes.
So I would encourage new fund managers to ask themselves which side of the line they sit on. And if they really want to be in the business of managing other people's money that other people have worked really hard to earn, what guardrails are they going to put in place to make sure that they behave with the best fiduciary responsibility and manage that money wisely with a low risk of losing it and a high risk of, or a high chance of, a wonderful outcome?
Yeah.
So our guardrails are research, thesis, post-revenue investing. So there are certain things I'm like, let's de-risk. So ultimately, we only take execution risk. Then we have our team that comes in. And so really, I don't say the fear, but the liability.
Of course.
It's a heavy liability.
Yeah.
And I think that people need to recognize that. And so then with that, the other side of Global Ventures that people don't see outside the firm, unless you're an investor with us, is our quarterly reporting, is a full-fledged 60-page document for each fund that no other VC does, and a quarterly LP call with all the LPs on a Zoom walking through the highs, the lows, the market, the risks that we're seeing. So there is this transparency and accountability. And I bring that from running the public company side of things at DEPA, which is this full transparency, accountability, quarterly reporting, quarterly calls, right? And why not in private markets?
Yeah.
So we are in a region that is often perceived as a black box.
Not just our region.
Growth markets. And then we're in an industry that's often perceived as a black box. So you put two black boxes together, the investors are really, really worried, unless it's a personal relationship, in which case that bar for managing that is even higher. So you just end up in a world where ask yourself, why are you doing this? What is the purpose behind setting up the fund? And have a very strong why and a very strong personal mission to do this, and then set up the guardrails to make sure that you are doing this as best you can.
Because you're accountable.
Yeah.
I love it. Excellent. Now tell us.
Yes.
What led to the writing of this incredible book, Coming of Age, How Technology and Entrepreneurship Are Changing the Face of MENA? I encourage everybody to go out and buy it. I haven't finished reading it yet, but I will finish it. writing a book is a huge endeavor. I've done it myself. It takes a lot of time. I don't know, what you were thinking, but you must have been thinking something. So tell us. And also, it's very clear how much you love the region you come from.
Of course. I think that's wonderful.
Yes, I love it.
So the book is really a culmination for me of the last, 20 years of working in this industry and around this industry. It's 35 founder journeys. It's the personal side of the journeys in as much as it's the success of the companies being built. What led to it? So I have honestly been privileged, honored, humbled to sit with thousands of founders over the last 10 years or so, and to hear all of their journeys. And some of them have really moved me. And then whenever I share little snippets with anybody outside the region, people are often surprised that we have such great founders, or we have such innovation, or that these things exist. And so I almost felt like it was a duty at the end of the day that I'm like, wait, I have access to these amazing people.
I need to tell it.
I need to tell their stories. And so sat with them, got them to contribute. It was wonderful. And many of them are old friends. And then started thinking about how do I create this with an arc as a story. And so it really does start with what is MENA, which there's so much interest in our region over the last 5 years. And everyone's like,
we are thousands and thousands and thousands of years of civilization. Yes. Syria, Egypt, enough said.
There you go. The cradles of civilization. So you think about it and it's like, what does inshallah mean? Why are we persistently late to everything? Time is fluid in our culture, right? So it is. Why do we always order too much food every time we go to a restaurant? So these concepts that there are these impressions, and they're not wrong, but where do they come from?
Yeah.
So really, what is MENA? What are the different countries and economies that matter? And then the founder journeys from 20 years ago, the founder of Souk, which is now Amazon.
I know.
So Ronnie's journey being...
I loved it.
He's a
frequent visitor here,
and
great. You two have some things in common on the other side of things that I just found out. We'll keep that to ourselves.
And then you have Kareem founders, Mudassir and Magnus, right? And what was it like 10 years, 15 years ago? All the way through to fintech, health tech, and other sectors, agri-tech, supply chain, and ed tech, and really thinking through a lot of our research as Global Ventures is identifying the macroeconomics of these and sharing them in the book, and why there are fundamental missing industries. So in healthcare, we have 1 doctor per 1,000 people. The U.S. has 4 doctors per 1,000 people. We'll never have enough doctors. So how does best in the world technology fill that gap?
Yeah.
And the founder stories for each of these sectors. And then finally ending with AI, crypto, and energy, and how we are very much, on the field, if not ahead of the curve in these industries, and building the future, and why we have the propensity to do that, rather than just the emulation models that we may have seen historically. We've seen so many innovation models in the last 5 years. So a second narrative for the region, right, and really helping some of the stories come through the light and share them with the world. So it was really a labor of love, and I'm glad it's out. It became an Amazon bestseller in the region within
fast.
2 weeks. Yeah,
very fast,
which was great. And it's really an opportunity to inspire the youth in the region that they can build great companies, but really to share the regional stories with the world.
Yeah, I love it. And, your book really speaks to this rise of this new generation of founders, and the role that these founders have played in also shaping where we are today. But the question I have to you is, what do you think makes this moment we are in so pivotal? This moment MENA particularly is in?
So I think it's a combination of events all happening at the same time. Mm-hmm. First is the youth have finally come of age, right? So it's finally, you take a look 10 years ago.
That's true. It was the Tariq Yusuf talked about the generation in waiting years back, but this is like a lot of people. We've arrived.
So people are in their, so the youth Belgians in their 30s and 40s, able to make decisions, have access to resources, want to build, want to create, and see the opportunity ahead of them. 20 years ago, they were in their 20s. That wasn't very helpful. So that generation has arrived. In addition, the leadership in the region is young, is forward-looking. Everyone has embraced technology to the extent that Dubai had had VARA, which was the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, which was the first regulatory authority for crypto in the world. The AI that's being built in the region is second to none. So you start to take a look and you say, okay, the talent's there. Secondly, the talent's coming there. Arab or not Arab, so many people are moving to the UAE and to Saudi, but specifically to the UAE, second and third time founders. We've invested in some of them that are coming to build their next companies there. And so that talent, engineering talent, founder talent is moving into the region. And then couple that with there's suddenly an interest by capital investors in the region. So I think that happened partly because of COVID, where people started visiting the region because it was still open.
Yeah, and safe.
And safe.
And
I
definitely
think
the UAE.
And the UAE. And as people look for quality of life, as people look to build companies where you can actually recruit talent from anywhere, many countries are putting up borders to immigration. The UAE and Saudi are taking down borders and saying everyone's welcome if they want to work and participate in the economy. So I think the combination of these things and the fact that people can work from anywhere, can build from anywhere, so really can pursue quality of life, safety, warm weather, has really brought the region to the forefront.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely made the region sexy.
Well, I think it's a great region, right?
It is. I'm with you.
I think
it's
that
like
it's
it's where my heart is. It's often misinterpreted, overlooked, misunderstood. All of it. So you took a family business and you IPO'd it. You built a fantastic firm. You wrote a bestseller. What's next?
I have no idea. I want to continue running the firm. I think it's great investing in more founders. I think sharing stories is definitely something I enjoy, and we'll see where that leads. I did Shark Tank Dubai.
Yes, we know about that.
Which was super fun. I didn't think I would enjoy that. It's not my forte. Media is not something I've leaned into in the past, and it was challenging, but it was really fun to do and to see all these founders from a different light and different perspective. But I think building the firm, there's still so much to do in venture capital.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so my last question is, none of us are staying here forever. There will be a time where our time will come. When that time comes, when people look at your life, what do you want your legacy of purpose to be known as?
That I thoroughly enjoyed the journey I was on. And that the contributions I made came from the heart and with love and fun.
I love that. Perfectly said. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Noor, for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for writing this book. I as somebody from this region, I just want to say Rafati Rasna again. And I appreciate what you are doing to shift the narrative of our region, which is extremely rich in history, but the present moment is also extremely rich in opportunity. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank all of you for listening to this episode with Noor Sweid on Legacy of Purpose. As always, you can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and stay tuned to come back for the next episode. Thank you, Noor.
Thank you, Dina.